Hello, welcome to this episode of Surveyor Says, the NSPS podcast. My name is Tim Burch, and I'm the Executive Director for the National Society of Professional Surveyors and your host for this podcast. Each episode of Surveyor Says features topics and guests from the world of surveying and geospatial professions, and also highlights up-and-coming personalities and technology. The next several episodes of Surveyor Says is going to feature exactly that. We have young surveyors from around the world that recently attended the FIG Working Week in Accra, Ghana. I was fortunate enough to be able to go over there and spend a few days and meet up with every one of these young surveyors and a couple of these small groups, and you will truly enjoy the conversations we had. So sit back, relax, and without further delay, here's our next installment of Surveyor Says. Hello and welcome to another episode of Surveyor Says. This is your host, Tim Burch, and well, I would say I'm on the road, but actually I've been on a plane, been on a bus, been on all kinds of things, and I'm actually on a whole other continent. This is my first trip to the continent of Africa. We're in the city of Accra, Ghana, for the 2024 FIG Working Week, and one of many stories that I'm collecting here during my travels and visits with a whole bunch of great people. We were standing out at a function the other night, and a gentleman that I know through some common contacts comes up to me and introduces me to a young man from Israel. And, you know, of course, in this day and age, I'm thinking, my heart kind of goes out to the whole situation, and let me tell you, and it's funny to sit here and say this while I'm sitting across from him, you wouldn't know there's really anything going on by this young man's attitude, his zest for surveying, and his just really passionate character. So I want to bring to you Firas.
Hello.
Firas, see, I've forgotten your last name already.
It's Fahoum.
Fahoum, okay. Firas was introduced to me. Firas, I got to make sure I get that right. Firas was introduced to me. Second generation surveyor, so you know that's near and dear to my heart because I am as well. And there's just something about the passing on of a profession through generations that there's this little synergy. And so when we got to talking, and he was telling me about what he was doing and what his career goals were and some things, we just struck up a great conversation. And the more we got to talking, the more it made it just absolutely obvious, you've got to hear this story, because this young man, write his name down, because you're going to see him involved in things throughout his career. I think he's really going to be something. So
I love that. Thank you.
For us, tell me a little bit about yourself. I always start by saying every surveyor has a story, especially from how they started. Yours is no different, but it's probably pretty unique to what our typical listener is used to.
I love that. Thank you, Tim, for that really nice introduction you've been doing. I hope to grow up into the shoes that you're saying that I might go into one day. But I love that. Well, I'd say that I was born as a young, passionate kid in the city of Nazareth, northern Israel, which is one of the most historical places to grow up in. The Fahoum family is actually generationally from there. It's an Arabic Muslim family that is known for its coffee for generations and for its roots, and people from all over the country and the world, when they come visit, they do know it as a monument, I guess, in the city, right, in a way. So it's one of the founding 10 families of the city.
Wow.
and
Okay.
and that's where I come from, I guess. And my surveyor story started actually in also an FIG event as a really young guy in I think 2009, 20, yeah. And I was at that time, I think 13 years old. I was there with my father, who, as you said, the first generation of survey in our family, and he. I held his hand when we walked into that conference, asking astonishingly with big eyes wide open, what is this? What is this world? I've seen him a couple of times prior to that, doing using some weird instruments for I don't know what at that time, and then I started meeting and seeing people that are very different than what I used to see in the past, and I said to myself, one day I want to be part of that, I guess. And it started there. I knew that I was wanted to be an engineer. Your father, when you were a young kid, your parents start asking you, what do you want to be when you grow up? They try to sometimes, recommend you some stuff.
Right.
And saying, do you want to be a doctor? Do you want to be? And I was like, no, I want to be an engineer like you. I want to be a surveyor. And he was like, are you sure about that?
Right.
And he tried talking me out of it for, as a joke. Mm-hmm. And then he was like, okay, you like it that much. Let's get you out in the field from a very young age, I guess the age of 12 years old. I was there with a hammer and wooden sticks, just,
Okay, yes.
doing some stuff, I guess. And I found myself like 10 years afterwards applying to university, wanting to be in that place. I even in high school I went for the physics and math and English. I knew what the university demanded for you to get in the civil engineering faculty, specifically geoinformation and mapping. Mm-hmm. So in a way. I know that you can't say that a kid had a clear vision about his future, but I always, in a way, knew what I wanted to do and where my added value should be to the community and to our community, to the survey and to the general public community as well. I like the way that you said. He'll do that out of the energy you saw. You'd know what to expect in the future, because I live by that energy in a way. When you get a new mission every day, a new job every day, the way you go about it really determines how or what is the outcome of not just of the mission itself, but out of your day. Mm-hmm. or what contribution it does to the people around you, and I have so many examples of that. And
well, that was one thing I was going to ask you in your career, and deciding you're going to be a surveyor. It's one thing, that like I said, most of our listeners based in the United States. Our country's soon to be 250 years old. That's a baby compared to where you're at, and
right.
and the civilization that's there, and the buildings, the monuments, the history. How did your career start in some of those interesting projects because of the history of where you're learning your craft?
Well, that's a really good question, Tim. Thinking about it, we even in our studies at the university, it started with learning about the Ottoman Mandate, because it shaped what came afterwards to the British colonization, to afterwards the foundation of the country of Israel, and the historical buildings and the historical monuments really added a lot to how you walk with geodesy, you do with geodesy, you deal with geodesy every day. Like, if you think about it, it also shaped the people around you in that place. I must say, it can get really challenging for surveyors to do some of these projects that we were mentioning. I have a few examples of these kind of affected, like, of things that were affected by that.
Right.
One of these stories is, for example, I was one day sitting at home eating a salad, and unrelated to everything, I choked with a piece of carrot, found myself in the hospital, and from there, you need to be hospitalized, you need to sleep there for one night, they need to check you need to run checks, but at the same time, out of nowhere, the phone rings, and it's one of my emergency contacts. It's one of the country's emergency nationals, and he called me after we did a few gigs together, and I did a lot of jobs. It started as normal surveying, and from one thing led to another. He started asking me to provide him a solution to any problem that concerns location, any problem. So he calls me something like at 2 a.m. I was in the hospital, and he says, Firas, I need you 6-7 a.m. in my office in Jerusalem. I'm like, hello, and I told him the story that I'm in the hospital, and he's like, can you make them get you out? And I'm like, and of course, I try to get out as in any way possible to just go there, because, as I said, I crave for these, for the added value, for the help,
right.
for the
Exactly.
Yeah, so it didn't let me out of, but the second day when all the checks went out and everything was okay, I went straight to Jerusalem. I sat there. And there were fires in one of the biggest forests. And apparently in that forest, specifically that forest, there was a valley. And in that valley, there was the station that provided electricity to the Hadassah Hospital, which was one of the largest hospitals in the country. It's the hospital that was based in Jerusalem. It's the first responder to any kind of emergency that happens, and out of the blue, they were really worried that the fire the catching fire would get into that station.
Mm-hmm.
So they said, how do you think the problem was that they wanted to know how would they tackle the fire in such a short time without harming the environment around it, and at the same time to make sure as fast as possible, while the fire was still on, that it won't reach the station and it won't be a national disaster. And of course, within no time, I told them, we gotta bring our drones, we're gonna bring everything up. There's a lot of work to do. What I did was immediately pull out every tool that I had, look at how it had its added value to that particular project. I saw an added value of using LiDAR scanner on a drone, and also using a camera to just make a 3D photogrammetric model. We used the LiDAR to specify trees and to see how how is gonna fire catch if we run a wind simulation model on it. And that's what happened. We created a 3D model of that area. We specified all the trees, and after that we found ourselves doing simulations on it, and in every simulation we marked each tree that could catch fire or be dangerous to that area. And I was astonished that every word I said was recorded at the time in meetings by like 15 people or whatever. And
that's not intimidating.
No, it's not. I mean, thinking about it, the next day they had teams of these baggers and those huge cat machineries. Just ready on site to take the order and do whatever it needs to be done for it to be efficient enough to save the day, let's call it.
Right.
And out of the blue, we in like less than 48 hours, the entire thing was over. We're talking about in Accra, it was huge. We're talking about something like 200 acres.
Right.
And mapping the area in such a small time, and also creating everything. And it's a sensitive area to work in.
Right.
Generally speaking, because it's a national disaster, the police was with you in the room asking for. He was like, "We'll give you permission for whatever you need. Just get the job done."
Right.
And it sums up the way that I've been going about it for the past 3 or 4 years. Every time there is a problem, like you'd ask me, Firas, what is your job at your company? And probably I'd answer you, fixing problems. Well, you'd say, fixing problems for who? For what problems? And it would be any problem that comes up that no one can fix. That is specifically my job, whether it's in cadastar or whether it's in engineering mapping or any other things, quantity mapping, you name it. And it all, I mean, you have to be skillful on different things and precise on different things to do that. But as I told you many times, being skillful is only 50% of the job.
Yes. Yes.
And the other 50 is, as I mentioned to you, it will be always for me communication.
Communication.
Having the good communication to just tackle some stuff in ways that your skill sometimes can't get there, and I have many stories on that aspect as well.
Yeah, no, that's good. I want to circle back to those for a second, because it's a combination of just some things you just said, in that it is high-tech equipment. It's all these tools, high-tech tools that you have at your disposal for doing all kinds of work. But you live and work and operate in one of the most historically sacred places. And I guess my question then is going to be, how do you find that balance? Is it difficult to find that balance between honoring the history, yet figuring out how to interpret some of this history and make decisions using high-tech tools? I mean, it's not like you're using a compass and chain like my forefathers did. I mean, this is high-tech stuff, but it's centuries old properties and buildings and things.
Well,
is it make it easier with the high-tech stuff, or does it does it does it add a layer of complexity to it?
Well, I guess it's both. It's both.
That's probably a good answer.
I'm gonna be fair. Like on one hand, I see myself as a traditional person in many ways towards our field,
Yes.
our area of job. Like on one side, as much as I have learned through my life, and as much as I know, let's face it, I would still be 30 years, 40 years less experienced than my father or any other profound engineer that has been there all that time. And as much as I've seen stuff or learned stuff that are advanced and may have not been seen by others, they do have the more experience and the advantage of the experience on that point. And you gotta respect that. You gotta be,
Yes.
you gotta give that the proper weight. And actually, I think that in a way it is the base in the pyramid for what we add, for what we bring to the table. Our high-tech solutions can actually be an extra layer over what I've been taught. And as much as I have learned, as much as I know, I would say it's still not everything. It's still not that. So I'm gonna bring an example of a project we were been doing in the port of Haifa, which was one of the most I'd call it expensive project for the client. And one of the project managers, he was already retired, and he still wanted to be on that project, and he was there holding all the strings with his hands. And at the same time, he needed it wasn't a one-man show, but he sure gave his added value, let's call it this way. And in one of those meetings, the client brings me up there. We were in that project, quality control. We check how the constructor did his job and how the contractor and subcontractor did their job. We checked over them. So when I was giving the reports of what should happen in the site, it's normal to get pissed off sometimes. A young hotshot coming in there.
Yeah.
Just bringing his reports and telling people what to do. So he got mad, and he didn't agree probably at the beginning on what I wanted to bring to the table. So he bluntly said, sit down, youngster, let the old people deal with this. And me and you are laughing at this now, but the room got really quiet at the time.
Yes, it would. Yeah, it would. It would definitely stop the room.
Right. So I personally found it as well funny as you, but at the same time, I agreed with him on point, because in a way, you need to be. I'm gonna say to be smart about it, or the big head about it. So personally speaking, personally thinking, he might have a point. Mm-hmm. Maybe I didn't have the whole picture. So I was like, you're right. Please let me hear what you have to say about it. Like, let's hear really the experienced folks. What do they think? And apparently on the spot, he said some stuff that I didn't consider at the time, which were, they were a bit unrelated to work, but at the same time, it gave me a different perspective on that thing. And sometimes, it's not losing perspective, but seeing the bigger picture. That you can be really small-minded about results of project, and you can be as a supervisor in a project. Just we need to do this and that. Really. I'd say dry, in the driest way.
Well, exactly.
And at that point, I heard him out, and when he finished, and he heard the other people in the room out as well, I told him, you know what, guys, you are absolutely right, and it's not that I'm contradicting you. It's that these high-tech equipment, these multi-stations, these precise 1 second multi-stations with that mini prism can actually help you. They're not here to harm you. And then I showed him how, from his perspective, it can be tackled. And from then on, every meeting since then, he made everyone else, shut up and listen to me or ask my opinion. And to answer your question, it is both ways. It is a bit complex to bring those high tech sometimes to the field, but at the end of the day, if you're 50% communication, do the job properly. Let's go as much as precise you are. I guess you can benefit from both worlds, from the experience of the experienced surveyors or the experienced project manager or whoever is on site, and at the same time you do bring that high tech to him for him to add that cherry on top, I guess. Again,
exactly. Well, I want to bring back around something you just said about communication, and something amongst a lot of things that stood out in our previous conversations over the last couple of days was about effective communication, how that is a lot of times just as important as your knowledge base,
right,
and bringing it all together. Because that's one of the things that stood out to me in getting to meet you and getting to know you is the effective communication, and how even with a little body of knowledge, by having effective communication and having good communication skills only enhances what you're going to do. So, and I guess part of my point there is that you could have a whole broad range of knowledge, but if you can't communicate that, you can't share it, you can't teach somebody that or tell somebody that, it's not really going to ever do anybody any good, and it's really ineffective.
You're right.
So I guess my question to you is, can you give us some examples of where communications, because of where you live, how effective communications has even potentially put you in harm simply because while you communicated the facts you needed, somebody else didn't.
Right.
And so it can lead to harmful situations.
You're absolutely right. Okay, so this is I love this question because it brings up an example that I'd love to share. So one time we had to map some parts in the city of Jerusalem in the past 6 months. Mm-hmm. And these are not easy times, Tim. I'm going to tell you that. Most of the time, operating some of our tools is almost impossible. One of that tool is, as I said before, drones. And specifically on that project, we had to map entire neighborhoods. And it just saves so much time to be able to do that. So when we had our board meeting, they asked, is it even possible to fly a drone? Mm-hmm. And I told them, well, leave that to me. Let's check out. And from one thing to another, I just started calling friends and calling everyone I know from that area. And one thing led to another. I got the number of the responsible person in the police of Jerusalem to get authorized to fly in those specific neighborhoods that we needed to do the mapping.
Because you're now in a time when flying something, whether it's, they don't know whether it's friendly or not.
All right, yeah, and not to mention that it's actually one of the bigger drones. It was Ametrus 300, which weighs 10 kilograms, in the color of black, made of carbon.
Yes.
and it just doesn't look good.
Right.
And you know, it's times that people look at the sky and see drones explode out of the blue. I mean, it's justifiable, but
it's the right tool for the job you're hired to do.
you're right. At that place, at that time, it's just that it was a possibility, and I didn't see it. You know, I try, if I don't see it as something impossible, which most stuff I really don't see sometimes, Tim.
And I like that confidence.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank
yes.
you. So you know, I started calling people, and I called the responsible person in the police department in Jerusalem, and she started calling her supervisors, and then at some point I got a paper stating that I can fly my really dangerous looking drone
Yeah.
in that very sensitive area. Oh, by the way, did I tell you that it was also a very sensitive day that I got the approval? It was the day before the Independence Day of Israel. So the declared Independence Day of Israel. So what happened is I went there to the field, and you know, before flying, I just like to make sure that everything is intact, you know. So I called the police department. Are we on the same line here? And they assured me that we're okay. And then I called the military responsible person on that specific task and asked them, are you guys aware of us flying a drone over some parts of the city of Jerusalem a day before your, you know, very important day?
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, you know, it's not our job to talk to you even, or whatever. Not he answered. He was a rookie on the phone that actually said, if you got approval from the police, you don't have to talk to us. You're good. You're okay. I'm like, yeah, I made the call just to assure you that we're on the same line again.
Effective communication.
Right. So closed the phone, took out my drone. People were really curious, started asking around, looking around. And you have to remember, Tim, like, although I'm in good relationship with everyone, usually, you know, some people, at the end of the day, I'm a Muslim Arab flying in the city of Jerusalem, an operational drone in the size of I don't know, a big suitcase, I'd say.
Yes. Oh, yes.
So people were asking. I tried to reassure them that everything is okay. It's a project for the subways. It's the municipality project, you know. And then I operated the drone, and it went up. And when it went up, all the city saw it. All the neighborhoods around saw it. And
those are not that quiet either.
You're right. Yeah. It's a very loud one, I must say. So, like, in less than 10 minutes, I was looking at the sky, and I see next to my drone coming up an Apache helicopter stating on the megaphone, if you do not identify in the next 3 minutes, you will be shot down. Please identify. Yeah, it wasn't nice. These were stressful minutes, I must tell you. And then it was really weird. Like, I did everything 2 times. I double checked.
Yes.
So I started calling, and apparently, you know, the military apparently was, I don't know, it was, as I said, it was a rookie on the job, and apparently he didn't pass on the message, which was passed multiple times, I guess.
Yes.
And in a matter of less than minutes of me screaming at the phone, the entire neighborhood heard from that same Apache, we are sorry for the bother. we were mistaken or whatever not.
Yeah.
And it went away and it just shows you that how quick it can escalate from nothing to something and to nothing back again.
Right. Wow. Well, just I think the mere sight of an Apache helicopter coming on would be enough.
Yeah.
In a time of conflict.
Right.
Oh my goodness.
It's not easy. It's been like 6 months where almost most of the country does not have GNSS network at all.
That was going to be my next question on, we hear this in the media of military operations and things going on, and that was going to be a question. How has this affected any operations that uses GNSS signals? Because whether are they shut off, are they spoofed, are they, are you able to do work as usual?
Well, spoofing and jamming has become a thing in the past. It's been a hackle for the entire surveying community in the past 6 months. It also actually is a problem for the entire country. Palestinians and Israelis as well. If you think about it, we don't have navigation systems at all civilian-wise. Like there's no, people usually use Google Maps. In Israel, there's a digital twin I'd like to call Waze, where people share everything happening on the road at every moment. You can, before leave the house, check the traffic and know where there are accidents, and you can know where the police is waiting for you with the speed camera, with the speed traps. And at the same time, out of the blue, we don't have that. We just don't have navigation at all. So even navigating to some sites as surveyors has become a hackle, because we're one of the few communities that travel all over the country.
Right.
So first of all, if you don't know your way with analogic maps, or you didn't print some maps before you left your house, it's also a thing now, Tim.
Mm-hmm. You're absolutely right.
It became a required skill, I'd say. And add to that, the surveying community has become, sadly, I'd say, really dependent on the GNSS systems, on the VRS networks, on the course-based networks in our country. And you see the complaints every day from surveyors that we can't work or whatever not. But as I said, as surveyors, it's not looking at the bright side. It's part of who you are. It's having these challenges and tackling them when you're on site. So, personally speaking, instead of seeing that as a problem, I had my times where I was like, bankers, I hate that. But at the same time, most of the time, I ate it like a challenge, It also created new opportunities, because there were a lot of these young folks who don't know how to be a proper surveyor, I'd say. Sorry for saying that.
I wholeheartedly agree. You've got to be able to use at least a range of tools in the toolbox.
Right. So these people probably are sitting at home for the past couple of months, or found themselves something else to do, while I'd say for me personally, I've never been busier.
Well,
the emergency projects just keep getting more and more intense and bigger. And because people don't want to respond to these missions due to inability to tackle them without these networks, it got us much busier. Mm-hmm. One of these examples is we were handed 6 projects that needed to be simultaneously done in less than 72 hours. And these projects include being coordinated system fully mapped areas, and all of them were in the area of Haifa and Accra, where these networks have been of all time long. So what happened was we went to the field, and we have these polygons. We have triangulation systems all over the country. We have approved points, not from us as a company, but from the National Survey of Israel. So you can. There are solutions.
Right.
It is possible. So what happened is we just went there, searched as good old surveyors for the points that exist on site. It can be 1 kilometer away from the site, which is roughly about 0.5 mile.
0.62.
Right, sorry.
No, you're okay.
So you just walk around. You'll find your points, and then you take you bring the coordinate system to you. You bring the world to you, even if the world. We have a saying: if Muhammad doesn't go to the mountain goes to Muhammad. and it is what's going on, Tim.
Yeah, well, very good.
So these were sweaty days as the ones we're experiencing now in Accra in Ghana. You just go out with those total stations, multi-stations. You work an extra day on each one just to bring it to your site and simultaneously just get it done. Get it done.
Well, I wanted to highlight that example simply because I think there is a majority of the profession that does take the use and availability of GNSS completely for granted. And it is such a fragile system, especially the US GPS system, that we have to be versed in other ways to measure and conduct our work, or we're gonna force ourselves into a corner. So I'd like your example of, hey, this is possible.
Yes,
it is definitely possible.
Yes, and it's weird because, like, we were the only ones who submitted for that project, and Tim, it was done in 72 hours, using just total stations and good old triangles.
Right. Well, you found a way to do it. There again, it's effective communication and knowing how to use your knowledge base to your advantage. Which, so I'm gonna switch gears a little bit there, because you are a young surveyor.
Right.
That's one reason that it brought you to Accra. Tell me how valuable that was in this day and age with the technology, yet with a profession that does rely on some field experience and some knowledge base to be acquired through work, but how important that education, that formal education, even if it's not simply just the courses that apply to surveying, it's some of the other soft skill courses that helps round you out and make you a more complete surveyor.
Right. I would say, Tim, personally speaking, yeah, I finished a course in Harvard on leadership and on the principles of leadership. And out of that, I would say I took some of these, they bring an example of the baboons and the chimpanzees, because the chimpanzees, unlike any other creatures, their leader is the one that not just steps up when the others need him, but also is you gotta know when to let go sometimes,
right,
to to make the better example. I'm gonna mention an example that I probably didn't mention before.
Sure.
But one time at Haifa, prior to the last attack that happened in Israel, when we got jammed and we got jammed a lot, I found a way to let's call it unjam or jam the jammer. And I used to, even when the military base take the drone away, I would find a way to just bring it back. And and at some point it was going good for me for like a very long while, for 3 or 4 or 5 months, and then there was one attack that was bigger than anything else that have ever happened in the country or in the region. So apparently, I didn't know that, but they strengthened the jamming 10 times.
Oh, okay.
And I found myself flying my drone, and it actually, for the first time for me, was getting away. And I know I've heard about many companies losing 3 or 4 drones, each one of them, but it never happened to me. So I was trying to unjam or jam back.
Right.
I only had one button that I could possibly get back, and it was the down button, getting it go down. So it was flying away from me, and I had the opportunity to just get it down while it was
Just
going.
bury it.
And yeah, we know how it ended. It just crashed, and I found it. I took it. I found myself fighting with the Navy people on why did they do that, and reflecting back on it, at the end of the day, I didn't use any of the pictures that were taken from the drone. What we actually used to do that was what we learned at the university. Guys, they don't teach 4 years for nothing. We learned maths for an entire year, so we can use that. I must tell you something, Tim. Until now, I've been 4 years after finishing my degree, and 2 years after being certified as a land surveyor in Israel, and until now, in those 4 years, I must tell you, I used a skill at least once from every single course that I learned during my education.
Nice.
And it's nothing that can be taken for granted. Like I've seen a lot of surveyor when I was a youngster that used to work for our company, that they used to tell me, I used 5% of my skills only. And they used to say that they don't think that everything they learned was important. While thinking about it and reflecting about it now after finishing, those are the things that make you stand out. Those are the things that make you a more professional surveyor, alongside being a good communicator.
Yes.
And if I didn't know how to operate laser scanners when they are needed, or multi-stations when they are needed, or even GNSS technological instruments when they are needed, including the drones, I wouldn't have been able to assist the other side, the client, the community that need that. And sometimes, our job as people that, as a person, I'd say, if I know that I'm the only one that can solve a problem for an entire community or for a client even, and I don't do that, or at least I don't hold up to my fullest potential, let's call it this way, it's something bad.
It's a letdown.
You're not improving, you're not advancing in life, I'd say, and on the same side, you're not a contributing member of society.
Yes. Exactly. No, I get it, and that's part. That's why like I said, you've shown so many skills. I wanted you to just be able to convey how valuable all this has been, putting this together and building this career to where it's gotten you today here in Accra. You gave a presentation today that went very well, and congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Very well received. So, what's next for you? I mean, do you have any short-term, medium-term, long-term goals? Or is it, you know what, I'm young and I just fly by the seat of my pants?
Well, I do want to mention how we got to meet each other, Tim, and well, I am passionate about what I do, as you have seen, and my vision and my goal is not just to be a contribute part to my society where I am now, but to where I see myself belong as well. I mentioned to you before, and I usually don't share that, but I'm willing to actually do that to our listeners as well. My mother is an American citizen. My grandmother is an American citizen. My sister became an American citizen as of 3 months ago, and I'm going through my naturalization process as well. And I guess we got to meet when I wanted to ask you, how can I become a surveyor in New Jersey in the United States? And it's something that I am looking forward to in the future, because as much as I see myself doing really good in the place that I am right now, it is something I wish for and I want for myself. I got to come to this FIG meeting, I got to come to this conference after, every time I go to a conference, I submit a paper to my company with 3 goals or 3 added values that I can bring back to my company after going to these conferences. I never expected our meeting, and neither all of this. This is actually beyond what my goals were. But I do want to state that this community that I've had the best time with in the past couple of days, including with you and the others, has opened my eye. If you see other people from various of different places tackle the stuff that it's in a way the same language, but you start from a point A, and we have a saying that if you go from Nazareth to Morocco, and you move 3 degrees to the right, you'll end up in England. So my point is, I'd say, seeing how other people from other places around the world tackle sometimes similar situations that we deal with, sometimes things that I didn't know that are a problem, such as in flooding areas. We didn't have floods, Tim, I guess ever.
Right.
And at the same time, you get to become a better professional just by having those breaking the ice moments with people, going and presenting yourself in a variety of ways, and showing what you find passionate about what we do, and hearing what others have to input, and out of a hi or how are you make new friends, and you start new journeys, I guess.
Exactly. Well, that's the beauty to me of FIG and associations in general, is it does allow you to meet contemporaries. We share stories, we share similarities, we're able to rub elbows with our contemporaries that see the same things we do, feel the same pains and aches and pains we do, and we have a fellowship through
Right,
all of it,
right.
and it's great. And I'm so thankful I come to Accra for a lot of reasons. Big reason was meeting you, and
Thank you.
It's been really, really enjoyable. What still blows my mind though is you said English is your third language, and the one you feel like you're the worst at.
Right.
So what's the other two languages?
My first language would be Arabic,
Okay.
and my second language would be Hebrew.
Hebrew. Okay.
It's funny, Tim. We didn't talk about this at all, but I spoke Arabic and Hebrew both at the same time at the age of 4 years old.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
I went to school knowing the two languages.
Oh wow. Oh, you're some kind of wonder kid.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Well, I think I opened up with, I think you've got a great future ahead of you. You've shown me nothing but the potential here, and yeah, I'm glad we met. I'm glad we were able to capture this, because even at the ripe old age that you are, what you've already experienced, like I said, sharing some of those stories, I think it's important for people to hear that whether it's working in a very, very, very old community, or if it's when technology no longer applies, surveyors have to be resilient.
Right. I do want to say one thing also, Tim, that the way that you and the other experienced folks, when I've met you here in this city, the way that you came and in a way hugged us, the young surveyors, and took us and actually gave us new opportunities. I'm not just speaking about myself. I've seen how other young surveyors as well have been coming to you, and you've always, what I want to say is I am really appreciative of the kind person that I've met here and from the other folks, and I would recommend anyone, just do not be shy to reach out sometimes. And
Exactly.
and there's other people in the room that hear you out, and they know that you exist. Sometimes they don't know that you exist, and if you just reach out, sometimes you can both sides can just have that benefit. And 1 + 1 sometimes, Tim, as we both said, is more than two.
More than two, exactly.
Right.
Well, I see the same old person in the mirror every morning that they see when they look at me. But
I don't see that.
part of it is, and like we talked about, it is how young you feel, and
Right.
it's developing a good relationship with. I hear what your strengths are. I want to learn something from you. Bottom line, I want to learn
Love
something
that.
from a lot of the young surveyors.
Love that.
Well, thank you for your time. Oh, by the way, we're recording this at going on midnight Accra time, and he's got a plane to catch at 5 a.m. So
Right.
I can't tell you how much I appreciate you doing this.
Thank you.
Well, we will definitely stay in contact. I think I feel like I've made a friend for life here. So
Both sides, my friend.
yes. Well, we thank you for listening. Wherever you listen to the podcast, please subscribe. We got a lot of great stories from Accra. If you haven't already heard some of them that we're capturing as we speak, we'll have a bunch more. It's conversations like these that make me want to do these every day. So thanks for listening. You've been listening to the Surveyor Says podcast, brought to you by the National Society of Professional Surveyors. If you have any questions about today's episode or any other topic, please email us at info@nsps.us.com, and we are here to help. Visit our website, nsps.us.com, to learn more about our association, the programs we administer and support, our sustaining members, and information about future episodes of Surveyor Says. Subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Spotify, as well as our podcast host, Podbean. And remember, it's a great day to be a surveyor.